Hello everyone, welcome back to another DST class video. Today we'll be looking at the Monk. The Monk being, of course, a classic D&D character class, although my version has a lot more spice to it and has given it a bit of a power bump in comparison to its 2014 self, but is powerful in a different way than the 2024 version. If you have no idea what this system is, basically I crafted my own special leveling system for D&D that replaces the way that normal character class progression works, making it more dynamic and more interesting when you pick your levels rather than just being a linear list of what you get. If you want to try this out or look into it more, I've got a video in the description that explains everything. And if you want to check out any of the other classes that I've already covered, they are in a Google Doc that I also have linked in the description. If you've been keeping up with this list or are new to watching it out, I would love if you left me a like or subscribed. Helps me keep this content coming out quickly. And other than that, Monk won the vote last time, and so we'll be checking it out. If you want to vote on which class you want to see me cover next, you can check it out in my Discord announcements tab. I have a vote just like this every single time I post a video for this system, and so you can vote on which one you want to see next. But I'll explain which classes will be up for vote at the end of this video, so watch all the way to the end if you want to see which classes will be up for vote next. Otherwise, let's hop into the Monk. The Monk is a 2d4 hit dice character, using Dexterity as their major stat and Wisdom is their spell stat. Let's get into the starting benefits of starting Monk. You'll get 8 plus your Constitution modifier in hit points, 2 hit dice, proficiency in simple weapons, and short swords. And you get to choose one set of tools, Dexterity and Strength saving throws, and you'll choose 2 from Acrobatics, Athletics, History, Insight, Religion, and Stealth. A pretty nice array in general, but if you're taking Monk as a dip from a multi-class or even your subclass, as well as starting in it, you'll pick up the important feature Martial Arts, which says that your practice of martial arts gives you mastery of combat styles that use unarmed strikes and monk weapons, which are short swords and any simple melee weapons that don't have the two-handed or heavy property. You can use Dexterity instead of Strength for the attack and damage rolls of your unarmed strikes and monk weapons. Your unarmed strikes deal 1d6 bludgeoning damage, and when you use the attack action with an unarmed strike or monk weapon on your turn, you can make one unarmed strike as a bonus action. Which means this is one of the few characters that just gets a straight-up reusable bonus action attack on every single one of their turns at level 1, which is pretty awesome. Not only at level 1, but at 1 node commitment. Pretty nice. But we'll start with Unarmored Body. This says that while you're wearing no armor and not wielding a shield, your AC equals 10 plus your Dexterity modifier plus your Wisdom modifier. So this is basically just like the Barbarian's unarmored defense. It allows you to use your Wisdom instead of the Constitution that the Barbarian uses, but notably Dexterity and Wisdom are your 2 most important stats, meaning that you'll probably be able to get them pretty high. Next, I'm going to move into Unarmed Improve. Now, this is a feature that will be coming up quite a few different times on the Monk skill tree, but basically it's going to be the way that you improve your damage that you'll deal with unarmed strikes. It says, when you receive this feature, increase the damage die on your unarmed strike in this manner. It'll go to 1d8 first, then to 1d10, then to 1d12, and finally going up to 2d6. So, even better that you can regularly get on your monk, and it scales faster than a normal monk if you want to just gun it to the damage portions. Next, I'll grab a +5 to our move speed, which is always nice. I mean, the monk is another class that also gets a bunch of move speed increases, which means that you can have a decently fast character by the end of your career, especially if you go out of your way to pick up some of the offshoots that you can check out. And we will next pick up Slow Fall. This says that you can use your reaction when you fall to reduce any falling damage you take by an amount equal to 3 times the amount of nodes you have in Monk. Now, 3 times the amount of nodes you have is a lot. For example, even right now we only have 5 nodes in Monk. That's 15 damage, which on average would reduce the fall from about 50 feet to 0, which is an insanely high fall. Before we move farther into the left side of things, I'm going to pick up Harness Key here because some of the features that we'll be picking up later will actually require key, even though it is on the left side of the thing. And so they won't be as effective if we don't pick up this feature now. Harness Key says that your training allows you to harness the mystic energy of Ki. You have a number of key points equal to your proficiency bonus plus wisdom modifier. You will also gain more when you receive a plus #key feature. And you can spend these points to fuel various key features. When you spend a key point, it is unavailable to you until you finish a short or long rest, at the end of which you draw all of your expended key back into yourself. So basically, every time you take a short or long rest, you receive all your key points back, and some features like this will give you extra key that you can use per short rest or long rest. You also have these 3 features right at Harness Key that you can use, which is Flurry of Blows, which says that you can spend 1 key point to make 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action. Notably, it does not require that you take the attack action to do this, so anytime on your turn, if you're willing to spend a key point, you can make 2 more unarmed strikes as your bonus action. Patient Defense says that you can spend 1 key point to take the dodge action as a bonus action on your turn. And Step of the Wind says you can spend 1 key point to take the disengage and dash actions as a bonus action on your turn, and then your jump distance is doubled for the turn as well, which is pretty cool. But before I move into more of the key stuff, I want to pick up the rest of this left half. We'll start by picking up a feat over here, and then picking up Slow Fall Improved. This says that you can enter a special mind space while falling to harness the power of your ki, to hold yourself in midair. While falling, you can spend 1 key point to hover in place for up to 1 minute. You will take fall damage from your new falling point after this instead of where you fell from originally, which not only will save yourself from some fall damage, but also can lead to some very interesting situations where maybe you want to hover mid-air so that you can solve a puzzle that's on the side of a cliff or something, which is pretty cool. Next, we'll pick up another Unarmed Improve. It gives you to get your damage dice up even further. And we can pick up a move speed increase of 10 feet, as well as a proficiency bonus increase, and then pick up Deflect Missiles. This says that you can use your reaction to deflect or catch the missile when you are hit by a ranged weapon attack. When you do so, the damage that you take from the attack is reduced by a roll of your martial arts die plus your nodes in Monk. If you reduce the damage to 0, you can spend 1 key point to make a ranged attack with the weapon or piece of ammunition you just caught, as a part of the same reaction. You make this attack with proficiency, regardless of the weapon's proficiencies. It has a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. Now, this monk will actually get a lot more key points than the regular monk does, and so Deflect Missiles ends up actually being a decent damage dealing ability as well as a reduction for attacks. Remember, the monk is basically a little bit better than a D8 character, which means that it's going to be similar to the rogue, where you're not necessarily wanting to get hit very often, and so these damage reduction abilities are going to come in handy quite often. Next up, we get that wonderful martial trait, Extra Attack. It comes at the same rate as a fighter's extra attack, but notably, since you also can pick up Harness Key only 1 node later, you can be doing 4 attacks in 1 turn pretty consistently, as long as you have the key points to spend on Flurry of Blows. But 3 attacks on your turn is very simple. 2 attacks with a monk weapon and 1 with an unarmed strike is always free. Speaking of unarmed strikes, let's grab another Unarmed Improve, which means that the damage on your unarmed strikes is going way up, and we can grab Deflect Attack. This is a 10-node commitment, but it's even better than Deflect Missiles, because this allows you to use your reaction to deflect an incoming attack. When you are hit by a melee weapon attack, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage you take from the attack by a roll of your martial arts die plus the nodes you have in Monk. If this reduces it past 0, the excess damage reduced is dealt to the creature attacking you. This incentivizes going really far into Monk, because the more nodes you take in Monk, the more likely you are to just not only negate the damage, but deal extra damage back to your target, which is super sick. Next, we'll go into the more mind-centric parts of the monk, starting off with devoted weapon. This says that during a short rest, choose one item, selecting it as your devoted weapon. You have proficiency with your devoted weapon, and it's considered a monk weapon. This is something that I really wanted to put somewhere on this monk's tree because limiting monks to monk weapons is cool in theory, but it really does make monks feel like they can't use weapons and they should almost always just use their unarmed strikes because it's kind of it's already keyholing you into something. But picking up devoted weapon allows you to use any weapon and treat it as a monk weapon, which is pretty cool. Next up, I'll grab Stillness of Mind. This says that at the end of your turn, you can end one effect on yourself that is causing you to be charmed or frightened. And you can do this ignoring the charmed condition, which would stop you. That part of text I added because I really don't understand why some DMs don't allow Stillness of Mind to work. It was clearly intended to allow you to end the charm condition. So charm condition should not stop you from doing this. And I basically just spelled it out so that anybody using this system knows that's how it's supposed to work. After that, I'll pick up a proficiency bonus increase. And after that, we can grab Devoted Technique. This is an ability that I was inspired by a different video on YouTube explaining great fixes to the monk. This says, your mastery of your weapon allows you to master the same properties within your fighting techniques. Whatever magical effects the weapon you have selected as your devoted weapon has, you can now manifest within your unarmed strikes. So for an example, if you have your devoted weapon as like a flame tongue dagger, when you use your unarmed strikes, they'll also deal additional fire damage, just like the Flame Tongue does, which I think is very cool and very, very flavorful, allowing for monks to get these like unique weapons and use them as their devoted weapon so that they're not missing out on the flavor of a different character that might be wanting to get some magical weapon that their DM gives out. After that, I will pick up Purity of Body. That says, your mastery of Ki flowing through you makes you immune to disease and poison. Might be niche, but might be really important, especially in a roleplay heavy campaign. Another 9-node commitment over here is Diamond Soul, which is not niche and says, your mastery of Ki grants you proficiency in all saving throws. Additionally, whenever you make a saving throw and fail, you can spend 1 key point to reroll it and take the second result. Very cool, and makes monks one of the best classes for not failing saving throws. Next up, we can start moving into the more key-centric side of the monk with a +5 to our move speed and then a +2 to our key point pool. Before picking up the beautiful feature Stunning Strike. If you don't like Stunning Strike, you don't have to like Stunning Strike, but it is a very powerful feature and I like it. So it says that you can interfere with the flow of ki in an opponent's body when you hit another creature with a melee weapon attack. You can spend 1 key point to attempt a Stunning Strike. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or be stunned until the end of your next turn. Basically, just the same as it's regularly written in D&D, it's Stunning Strike. But off of Stunning Strike is a bunch of different ways to spend ki when you deal damage or attack to make things more interesting. And so I'll go through all of these. We'll start with Rabbit Palm. This says that you can spend 1 key point to jump 30 feet before making an attack. So basically it gives you even more movement if you didn't think you already had enough. And off that we can also pick up another ki increase. Or we could grab Parrot Jab. This says that on a hit with your unarmed strike, you can spend a number of key points to cause the target to only be able to repeat the next thing you say to them for a number of minutes equal to 10 times the number of key points spent. So for example, if you wanted to cause a guard to be unable to tell their friends that you guys are intruding, you could Parrot Jab them and say, there's nothing wrong. And then for the next, say you spent 3 key points, for the next half hour, the guard can only say, there's nothing wrong. It's definitely a more flavorful feature, but it could come in some very wacky situations and make them even more funny. After that, we can pick up another +2 to our key points. Over here, we have Crane Kick. This says that on a hit with your unarmed strike, you can spend 1 key point to knock the target prone. No saving throw on this, they are just knocked prone. And after that, we can grab an ability score improvement. Over here is Deer Strike. This says that on a hit with your unarmed strikes, you can spend 1 key point to move up to 20 feet in a straight line. If you can attack another creature after moving, deal extra 2d6 damage on a hit against them. So basically, this is kind of like the charge effect that most, deer and other animals of a similar variety in D&D have, where basically they'll do extra damage by moving in a straight line. After that, we can pick up another 2 to our key point pool and grab Wolf Fist. Wolf Fist says that before attacking, you can spend 1 key point for advantage on the attack, even if you had disadvantage beforehand. This is trying to make it seem kind of like you have pack tactics by using your key to influence yourself. And off that, we can pick up a plus 10 feet to our move speed. Another one we can grab is Tiger Fist. This one I think is very fun. It says that on a hit with your unarmed strike, you can spend a key point to cause the bleeding effect in your target. Every time that target takes damage until they heal, deal 1d4 additional damage. And that's what basically the bleeding effect is. I kind of added this condition, and there's a few other classes that use it, but that's the baseline for what bleed does, is it causes extra damage whenever they take damage, which means that, a magic missile or a mystic missile would be really effective on a bleeding target. We'll then grab a plus 2 to our key points, and a proficiency bonus increase over here as well. Before the final specialized strike you can make is Snake Strike. This says that on a hit with your unarmed strike, you can spend 1 key point to cause a wisdom saving throw from your target. If they succeed, they'll take half damage, but whether they succeed or fail, you'll deal an extra 1d12 poison damage. So this might be a bit niche, but could come in handy, especially if you're fighting something that doesn't have resistance to poison damage, or you have a way to get around resistances. Either way, afterwards, you can pick up a feat from this. Now we've just got the center left, we can pick up next Meditative Patience. This is a very fun feature, which says, when you enter into a fight, you have learned to hold an action for later during that combat. When you roll initiative, you can spend 3 key points and select an action to hold for later. At any time during the next 1 minute, you can spend your reaction to use the action you held. So you could, for example, say, I hold my action at the beginning of combat to make the attack action. And then anytime during that combat, you can spend your reaction to make the attack action. Which is pretty good, and it lasts for up to a minute, which means even a decently long fight, you can hold this out till the perfect moment. After that, we can pick up a feat, a plus 10 to our move speed, a plus 3 to our key points, a proficiency bonus increase, and then grab Stasis Strike. Stasis Strike is a really fun 9-node commitment that says, during your turn, you can spend your action, bonus action, or movement, and 1 key point to hold it for a later turn. At the end of any turn you didn't use Stasis Strikes, you must spend 1 key point for all held activations of Stasis Strikes. So notably, you could use this to hold your movement on 1 turn, and then the next turn, hold your movement again, and then the turn after that, spend your movement again and hold all 3 of them. You could literally take 3 movements, plus that turn's movement, plus use your action to move, and your bonus action to dash, allowing you to move an incredibly fast amount of speed in just 1 turn. And that's all thanks to Stasis Strikes. Now that same logic applies to any bonus actions you might have or actions. So for example, if you are running up to an opponent but you don't want to beat the rest of your team, you could use Stasis Strikes to just hold your bonus action and action for the turn when all your friends get there, and then on the turn afterwards start using even more flurry of blows and more attacks to kind of make up for the fact that you missed those on the first turn. This just allows for some really great action economy, and I think it's a great dip in any martial class that's wanting to, save actions for later turns. Even great on spellcasters too, because you can spend spells for later as well. Next, we can pick up an ability score improvement over here, a +3 to our key point pool, and grab Follow Up. This says that when you take the attack action, you can make an unarmed strike with your reaction at any time before your next turn, as long as it targets a creature you hit with your attack action. So this again is allowing for your reaction to be used for attacks, which means the monk is actually going to be really hamstrung with how many reactionary abilities they want to use. They've got slow fall, deflect missiles, deflect attacks, meditative patience, and now follow-up, which means grabbing an extra reaction or maybe skipping out on some of these abilities to save features that use your reaction is probably going to be a must for a monk user. We'll pick up another ability score improvement, the final unarmed improve feature, +3 to our key point pool, and a great 7-node commitment, Centipede Flurry. This is the final specialized attack that the monk can make, and it is by far one of the funnest features in my opinion. It says that you gain the ability to embrace an even stronger flurry of blows, although doing so is taxing on the body, so it can only be used one time per long rest. Instead of using Flurry of Blows, you can use Centipede Flurry, where you choose one target and make an attack. If the attack hits, you may attack again, and you may keep making this attack until you miss. Which means if you've got a boss with an especially low AC, or your other player characters have perhaps nerfed its AC in some way to make the monk's attacks super efficient for hitting, you can just punch, and keep going until you finally miss. Hopefully by the time you do miss, they're already dead from the buckets of damage you can pump into it. But if you miss on your first attack, the whole thing is wasted, which makes it a super gambly playstyle, and you know how much I love gambly playstyles if you've watched the rest of this builds. But either way, I think Centipede Flurry is a very fun ability. And off of it, we've got two other features that are both 8-node commitments, a 3 to our key point pool, and a +1 to our max proficiency bonus, which is another great efficiency to have on a character that has something like Diamond Soul, giving them proficiency in every saving throw. Either way, let's go check out some feats that can make the monk even cooler. A feat I'll recommend right off the bat is Proficient. It's a nice simple feat that can really help the monk out with, especially if you're grabbing things like Diamond Soul. Just giving you extra proficiency bonus increases is always something great. I've talked about this before, but Warden Initiate works really well. It says that whenever a creature you can see uses a legendary action, you regain your reaction. And on a monk that's wanting to use their reaction almost all the time, this works really well for giving you that extra action economy you might need. Magician Initiate is a great way to make your stunning strikes more viable. It says that once per short rest, you can increase or decrease the saving throw of a creature that you can see by 1d6, which means that if you go for a stunning strike and you notice that their stun just doesn't quite go off, you could maybe reduce it by up to 6. It would probably turn that success into a fail. Monk Initiate isn't actually the best on a monk in general, but it does have its benefits. It says that you gain proficiency in your unarmed strikes, and they deal force damage, and then your unarmed strikes can deal 1d6 plus your strength or dexterity modifier damage. So if you're not a monk, this is a great way to give yourself some unarmed strike capabilities for some weird build that you're going for that doesn't use monk. But if you are using a monk, at least your attacks deal force damage instead of bludgeoning damage, which might get around resistance more often, but bludgeoning damage isn't normally resisted very frequently, so this might not be very useful. Let me quick talk about Blunt Bruiser. This says that when you attack with a club, great club, light hammer, mace, sling, maul, or warhammer, many of those are monk weapons by the way, you can also deal the damage dice from that attack to a creature 5 feet away from your target. And then when you land a critical hit with a club or great club, once per turn, instead of taking the critical damage on the attack, you can roll 1d6 for the club, 1d4 for the great club, and make a flurry rush of attacks with the same weapon equal to the amount of roll on that dice. Which, I mean, monks already really like to just make a ton of attacks, so this can make your like club wielding monk just go ham on whatever they're fighting, which could be really funny. Of course, if you take this feat twice, getting it at second level, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage, notably that's like any of your unarmed strikes, you can move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space, provided that that target is no more than one size larger than you. When you score a critical hit that deals bludgeoning damage to a creature, attack rolls against that creature are made with advantage until the start of your next turn. Grappler is a fun one to pick up on your monk. It says that you have advantage on attack rolls against a target you are grappling. And then you can use your bonus action to squeeze your grappled target, dealing your strength modifier bludgeoning damage to them. If you take this grappler feat twice to pick it up at its second level, creatures you have grappled have their AC lowered by your strength modifier, and your bonus action squeeze now deals 1d4 plus your strength modifier bludgeoning damage, which could be pretty good. Now, notably, the monk doesn't really focus on strength, but if you want to go for like some sort of a bruiser type monk, this could be kind of a cool one to pick up. Another one that I find really fun to pick up on your monk is Sage. This says that during combat, if you do not make an attack or cast a harmful spell on your turn, your proficiency bonus increases by 1 until the end of a turn where you cast a spell or take the attack action. This works pretty well with things like stasis strikes, allowing you to just save your actions for a later turn where you can increase your proficiency bonus until you decide to use those, and then your chance to hit goes way up. If you take this a second time, you gain the ability to have a pool of 3 sage points, which you can recover on a long rest. You can spend any number of sage points whenever you add your proficiency bonus to a roll, or whenever a creature makes a roll against a DC that uses your proficiency bonus. For every point spent, increase your proficiency bonus by 2 for 1 round. This is, again, more proficiency bonus increases that could come in handy in certain situations, especially if you're going for a monk that's mixed with some sort of a spellcaster. You're going to be throwing out a spell that has a, regular DC to make the save, but you spend a few sage points to up that DC way higher. And of course, if you take it at its third level, you will regain your sage points on a short rest instead of a long rest, which, that's always better. And the final feat that I'm going to recommend on a monk, and this kind of goes in tandem with a different feat usually, but it could come in handy for certain things. It's Master of Techniques. This says that when you take this feat, choose one of the following qualities: Finesse, Thrown, Versatile, D10, Two-Handed, Strong, or Reach. Whenever you use a weapon or make an unarmed strike, the quality chosen can be considered a quality of that weapon. I don't know how you're going to flavor a punch that is considered thrown, but I'm sure you can think of something. Either way, if you combo this with some other niche feature, it could make your unarmed strikes really funny and interesting. But if you take it at its second level, there is a nice generic, you can take in -3 to hit for a +6 damage on any attack you make with a weapon or unarmed strike, which means that your monk can now be doing the, Great Weapon Master type -3 to hit, +6 to damage. It's not quite as good as -5 to hit, +10 to damage, but it's on an unarmed strike, which means you could be doing this on every single one of your Flurry of Blows attacks, any of your stasis attacks. It's pretty nice. Anyway, that's all I have to talk about the monk for. I really like the monk. I don't like it as much as some people do, but some people hate the monk, and I don't know why they hate it. I think it's really fun. I think of it about in the same way that I think of the fighter. It's a nice, cool class that has some interesting feat options and a lot of fun class features that you can mix and match with some other classes to make something very fun and unique. Either way, let's get into some vote options for this week. We have got the Vanguard. This is a martial class that is focused on not only protecting their team behind a massive AC and an incredibly high amount of hit points, but bashing their enemies into submission with their mighty shield. Or we could take a look at the Swashbuckler. This is a roguish martial class that basically taunts their enemies into thinking that they couldn't possibly harm them, and then going in for the killing blow with a nice finisher, using their panache for extra move speed and extra damage when they use a finisher. Or we could check out another spellcaster, the Magician. Very bardy in nature, this is all about manipulating dice rolls of not only your allies, but also the opponents that you're fighting against, mixed with a bunch of spellcasting benefits. If you want to see any of these classes specifically, you can vote in the comments below or in the announcements tab on my Discord, also linked in the description. But either way, leave me a like if you liked the video. I hope you did, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.